Dear friends of the heart, I'm really happy to be able to share this time with you and to talk a little bit about my work, and in particular about a transpersonal way of dealing with forgiveness, which I have called Circles of Forgiveness, which were created in 2012 and that now exist in some 15 countries and probably many more to come just by next year. Um, this whole adventure started with me 26 years ago in 1999 when I had translated and published Don Miguel's book, The Four Agreements in French. And I decided to go and meet the man behind the book. So I went to Mexico and I was with a small group of about 20 people, and we spent 2 weeks in Mexico and New Mexico. And what happened is that on I guess it was the very second day of my trip there, we were in Teotihuacan, a name which means the city where man becomes God. And by the end of the day, Miguel announced he was taking me as his apprentice, and right after that, had me go through a very unexpected short ritual. It probably lasted just maybe 30, 40 minutes. I'll never know exactly. Of course, I wasn't looking at my watch. And it was a forgiveness ritual, and forgiveness was absolutely not part of the program of these 2 weeks. So I was puzzled, and I just went through the process. And he had me, first step, he had me ask forgiveness from all the other participants that were in the room. I found myself kneeling in front of each one of them, just looking in their eyes and asking forgiveness from each one of them. And right away, the transpersonal dimension of the process emerged as I quickly realized that all of these people, I barely knew them. We'd been together for like, what, I don't know, like 48 hours. I had no issues, no unfinished business with them. But several times while looking at this man or that woman in the group, suddenly I was no longer seeing that person in front of me, but I saw another face of a friend, of a relative, of a colleague, of somebody who might be living thousands of miles away, or might even be deceased. And through that particular participant in the group, I was actually asking forgiveness from somebody who wasn't there. It was purely transpersonal. And it was so powerful that by the time I had finished the 20 person, I had the feeling I had been offered a sample of humanity, and that through these 20 people I was able to ask forgiveness from just about anyone, all of mankind, anyone I had issue with, I had judgment towards, and so on. So I found myself by the end of this just first step already in a very different inner state. Second step, Don Miguel asked me to ask forgiveness from all the people, the groups that we demonize, which I turned into, I understood as being our scapegoats. The people, the group we decide they are the one responsible for everything that's wrong on this planet. They are the one responsible for the evil that's going on and so on. So we feel entitled to judge them, to hate them. And Miguel asked me to ask forgiveness from them. Ask forgiveness for using what they do, using what they say as a reason to keep my own heart shut. And so I closed my eyes and I took a moment to do just exactly that. And I was surprised to see that something was being released inside of me. So, third step, Miguel asked me to, in his own words, he said to ask forgiveness from God. Now in Circles of Forgiveness, I've changed that because we're dealing with lots of people from all countries, all walks of life, and to some people the name of God is too complicated. So we turn that into asking forgiveness from whatever is greater than us. It may be God, but it may be nature, it may be love, it may be the source, the universe, whatever. And again, Miguel said, we can even use what is sacred, what is so much greater than us, to keep our heart shut. And I immediately had an example of that. Have you ever heard anybody say, where was God in the concentration camps? Where is he when women is being raped, when a child is the victim of a pedophile, and so on? So when we say things like that, we are actually using that which is so much bigger than we are as a reason to keep our same hard feelings and keep our heart shut. So again, I closed my eyes for just a while and I asked forgiveness for what, for me, represents the bigger, the greater than myself. And again, I could feel something just letting go, some huge release happening inside of me. And fourth and last step, Miguel asked me to ask forgiveness from myself. And he warned me that that would be the most difficult. And why the most difficult? Because I guess most of us have so many judgments against ourselves. We have these inner wars going on where we find so many things that are not okay, where we're not enough, we're not good enough, we're not this or that enough. And there's this inner war and conflict going on inside most of us all the time. I think if we could see the amount of self criticism, self hatred, self judgment that goes on in society, we would be stunned, really stunned. So again, I closed my eyes and I asked forgiveness from myself. And I had two images that came this very first time. First, I saw myself, we all have pictures of ourselves when we're kids. I saw myself as a little baby, and for me, babies are, a symbol of purity, of innocence. So I asked forgiveness from me as a baby, and then I saw the divine spark, the soul, the spirit that's inside of us, and again I was asking forgiveness from that part of me. And in this fourth step, I suddenly felt like everything I had been keeping inside my heart for all these years was suddenly wide open, released. The dark waters of hatred, of judgment, of criticism were just flowing out of my heart so that it could again be feeling love, be feeling forgiveness, be feeling compassion and everything. So it was a very intense experience, what people call the peak experience, which ended with two important things. One, Miguel had a sort of collective hug around me from all the group, which brought me back to the physical body. And two, he said something that was responsible for all that followed. He said, I just help you go through this process, but, and this is a huge but you can do it again whenever you want. And for the next following month, I was still carried by this powerful experience. But then there came a time where I started judging again myself and others and criticizing. And I saw myself doing it. So I remembered what he said. I can do this. Well, how do I do it? There's no group. There's no Miguel. There's no pyramid. We're not in Teotihuacan. Well, I just went through the 4 steps as an inner process. And I was amazed to see that within 10-15 minutes, I was feeling the same release, what I called the shower of the heart. We find it normal to take a shower for the physical body, but we need showers for the heart because of the feelings of the emotion that otherwise stick with us and that become toxic in our lives. And I realized the same thing was happening. And it took me a certain number of years of just practicing this by myself until the point I decided to share that. And I started with workshops, weekend workshops. And rapidly, the number of requests was far too big for me alone. And I thought it's a little difficult to train people to do the whole weekend. So why don't I do just a short, condensed version, which I call the circle of forgiveness, because there are circle of women, circle of men, there are circle of prayers, circles of healing, all sorts of circle. And I like to say we spend so much time online. It's good to spend time also in circle. So I created circles of forgiveness, and I can even tell you this: the very first time I tried this was at a Transpersonal Congress close to Paris, in 2012. And I was amazed to see that in just 2 hours, people were able to experience something very similar to what I had experienced myself back then in Mexico. And initially, I had hoped that there would be, like 10 or 15 maybe circles in France and Belgium and Switzerland where I do most of my work. But it grew way, way faster than I ever expected. And I found myself doing that most of my time because I realized people were looking for a non-religious way of dealing with forgiveness. Forgiveness for a lot of people is, it's related to Christianism or maybe to Judaism or Islam. But they tend to think that it has to be religious, which is not. My simplest definition of forgiveness today is healing the heart, healing the wounds of the heart. All of us have wounds in our heart, and most of us don't know how to heal them. So we can keep them for years, for decades even, and any event can trigger these wounds being open again and hurting again. And we've been very good at the medicine of the physical body, but as regards the medicine of the heart, we've been much less good. And so I was offering something very simple that takes very little time, from 2 to 3 hours. I've done it a lot of times in just an hour and a half in congresses, in conferences where the timing is very strict, and it does work. It's simple, it's powerful, it's transpersonal, meaning that it allows people to give and receive forgiveness from people who do not have to be present. As I said before, they can be miles away, thousands of miles away. They can be deceased, dead for years. But we all know that if somebody had just to die for our relationship problems with them to finish, we'd know it. So people still have problems with parents or other people that have died for years, and they still feel, anger and resentment and things, and it's not finished. But within a circle of forgiveness, through the participants, and you never know which one, then suddenly you can feel that this forgiveness is being exchanged and your wounds are being healed and you find yourself whole again. Uh, just for the record, I discovered self-help and spirituality in 78, 79 while I was an exchange student in the United States. And so it's been like 45 years or so, even more, that I've been in that. I've tried an amazing number of methods, and I found many fascinating things. But honestly, uh, I haven't yet found something that triggers changes that are as deep, as lasting as working on forgiveness. Because again, most people, even if they're not aware of it, are carrying these wounds, and these wounds keep them from loving themselves, from loving others, from loving what's greater from us. So I believe that today it's one of the major ways we can change our relationship to ourselves, change our relationships to our loved ones, to nature, to everything around us, by healing these wounds that we've been carrying for so long. And again, because of the transpersonal dimension, it means that people do not have to talk in a circle of forgiveness about what happened to them. They don't have to retell the story. And you know that sometimes telling the story over and over again is not helping. And some people do not feel like they want to share this in a workshop. Well, in a circle, they don't have to. They can go through the whole process, and nobody will ever know what is going to be healed inside of them through the other participants. But the feedback that we've had over those past 15 years is just beautiful. I can just give you rapidly a few examples to emphasize the transpersonal dimension. For example, uh, in one of the very first workshops that I did, there was at the final ritual, there were about 40 people, and there was this young woman, and she found herself at some point standing in front of a lady that must have been 65, something like that. And instead of just doing what was told, you look at the person in front of you, you just tell them, please forgive me. And then you move on and you're facing another person. Well, when she was facing that elderly woman, this young woman found herself saying, please forgive me, little mother. Why did she have little mother? She didn't know. It just came through her, literally. But the woman standing in front of her started crying and crying and crying, like if some old wound was suddenly opened and something could be released. And when at the end of the ritual they talked together, they realized that uh, this woman, this elderly woman, was feeling very guilty, was very judgmental towards herself because 27 years ago she had had an abortion, and she was still judging herself for that. She couldn't make peace with that. And that young woman in front of her was exactly 27. And both didn't know anything about each other's life. But because that young woman said, please forgive me, little mother, that wound broke open, and this woman finally could heal that wound. Just quickly, another example. I had a circle of about 60 people, and there was one black woman from Africa in there. And at the end of the ritual, many people told her, "Oh, I'm so glad you were here because through you, I was able to heal, the relationship of France with Africa, colonialism, slavery, and things." And at least 4 or 5 people shared that with the whole group. And then this woman raised her hand and she said, just for the record, I'm from Ethiopia, which is the only country in Africa that was never colonized. And I found that beautiful because it showed that she clearly was the living icon that some people needed so they could do through her in a purely transpersonal fashion the healing that they needed. It had nothing personal, nothing to do with her real nationality or whatever. And because of this transpersonal dimension, I created in 2018 with our Association Pardon International, we created what we've called the Caravan of Forgiveness. The idea being that there are so many places in the world where very bad things happen, First World War, Second World War, or even much earlier, the Inquisition or whatever. And if you are sensitive and you go to these places, you may find yourself suddenly overwhelmed with feelings, emotions, images, sometimes even, that do not belong to you because something never found peace in this place. And it's still acting in the present to tourists or whoever goes there. I've had that personal experience twice in south western France where the Qatar used to be. And so we decided with the Caravan of Forgiveness that we would go to these places and do a purely transpersonal circle of forgiveness, meaning that we are not there for us. We are not there because we're trying to heal anything in our personal story or even, transgenerational or whatever. We are just here so that through us, whatever needs to find peace, whatever needs to find resolution in this place, can do so through us. And because of COVID, we had a few years where we weren't able to do it, but we've done it 4 times to this day, and each time it's been an amazing experience for all participants. And that gives me hope. It gives me hope that uh, forgiveness can be exchanged. We can heal our hearts. We can love again, even if the people who've done harm to us have no idea. They haven't changed. They live somewhere else. They may be dead. The healing can happen. We can heal things in relationship with history. So, and I think the simplicity of this process, a circle of forgiveness, the shortness, just 2-3 hours, is one reason why we've trained some 800 people in the past 12 years to lead such circles in a number of countries. Um, I want to quickly add one thing. You may have noticed when I started this speech that when I recounted my experience with Miguel, never did Miguel ask me to forgive. Never. 4 times he asked me to Ask forgiveness. Ask forgiveness from others. Ask forgiveness from my scapegoats. Ask forgiveness from what is greater than us. Oh, I had the image going out. I'm back. And finally, ask forgiveness from myself. So, Don Miguel actually taught me how to ask for forgiveness, not how to forgive, which may be very surprising. Aren't we supposed to forgive? Isn't that what we're trying to do? Uh, since I have very little time, I can't go into all the details, but what I can tell is that this reversal way of practicing forgiveness, not forgiving, but asking for forgiveness, creates an opening inside of us. And through that opening, the waters of forgiveness may actually flow and cleanse us and heal us. As strange as it may sound, today I don't believe we can forgive. I think we can create the conditions that are necessary so that forgiveness can flow through us. Forgiveness is like life. Forgiveness is like love. We don't decide to live. We are living. Life flows through us, and because it flows, we can act and think and love and do things. We don't decide to love. It's not a decision. Suddenly we fall in love. Suddenly love flows through us for another human being, for an animal, for whatever. It's not something we decide. The French philosopher Pascal said the heart has its reasons that reason does not know, meaning that it's not something rational. It hasn't anything to do with the will. It's happening. Of course, we can create conditions. We can create conditions so we are in better physical condition. Life flows better through us. We can create conditions so that love can flow through us and is not hindered by pain, by emotional wounds, by past stories, and so on. And in a similar way, we can create conditions so that forgiveness can descend, can flow through us, uh, can be given to us as a grace in some way. And I think that's one of the key elements of this unique way of living, experiencing forgiveness that I received from Don Miguel. I don't think he ever expected me to create these circles and for this whole adventure to develop as it has. On my YouTube channel, you find a short 1 minute 30 video that he offered for the 20 years of this adventure. Very lovely words. But I think what he had me go through, which I adapted so that it could be lived in a group, and forgiveness exchange both ways. It's something that was so simple, so powerful, and it offers an awakening, an opening for a lot of people to spiritual, to a transpersonal, to a very different dimension. That's one reason why circles have grown so much, because a lot of people were so touched, so moved, their life changed so much after this experience that they came back to us and said, how can I create a circle in my town, in my city, in my country? And this is why it has grown. I'd like to mention, by the way, that circles of forgiveness are being led on a non-profit basis, meaning that all the people who are leading the circles are not making money with it. The fee that is being asked just covers the expenses, allows people to come to one of the gatherings that we do for Circle of Forgiveness facilitators, so that we can keep learning together and increasing our knowledge. So that's what I wanted to share with you, the power of forgiveness. And this idea, if there are two things you should remember from this short talk, is what I've just said. I don't think we can forgive. I think we can create the conditions so that forgiveness can flow through us, is not hindered. There's an image I like from a Bulgarian philosopher called Omar Mikhail Ivanov. He said, the sun is all powerful. Everything that lives on this planet owes its life to the sun, to its light, to its warmth, to its energy. Without sun, there is a dead planet. And he said, even though the sun is all powerful, there's one thing that it can't do. It can't open your shutters. So if you're inside your house and all shutters are closed, no way the sun is going to get in. So your job, he said, is to open the shutters. Once you open the shutters, the light comes in, the warmth comes in, the life comes in, and everything changes. And I love this metaphor. I love this image because um, I do believe today that most of our job is just right that. It's to open the shutters to love. It's to open the shutters to life so that it flows fully through us and we're in good health. It's open the shutters to wisdom, to knowledge, to everything. We're not so much creating things than letting them happen through us, manifesting through us. And so, circles of forgiveness is a very simple way of creating that opening and letting something flow through us, change us. And that's one reason why, for a lot of people, it's a transpersonal, but it's a spiritual experience too. A lot of people find themselves after 2 hours with like 20 or maybe 30 or 40 people they never knew 2 hours before, and they have had an experience of unconditional love towards people they didn't even know before. And it's quite stunning when you've never experienced anything of that kind, when you've never done any transpersonal work, when you've never been into different states of consciousness, to experience that in such a short time with other people you don't know is often a trigger for people that may lead them afterwards to read books about spirituality or to go back, who knows, to their former religion if they had one. And I'd like to say one final thing. One of my favorite philosophers is Charles Eisenstein, who's written many books, one of them being The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible. And he says something I fully agree with. He says, it's not as easy as people think to change your belief systems, your beliefs. Because beliefs, we are attached to them. We have a lot of emotion, of heart feelings that go with our belief system. He said the major way we can change our beliefs is to have a first-hand experience that is impossible within those beliefs. And that forces you to change those beliefs, to make them bigger, so that they can englobe, they can, I don't find my words in English, so that this experience may be part of this new belief system you have to create. So I think every time we offer an experience through whatever technique, transpersonal things, tools that we have, when we offer a transpersonal experience, a first-hand experience to people, we give them an opportunity to open up to a new philosophy, to a new way of seeing themselves, the world we live in, and everything. And I think that's what's needed. Books are wonderful. I write books, I know about that. Teachings are wonderful, but nothing will replace a first-hand experience, something that has impacted us physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And that is what may trigger then our interest for another philosophy and give new meaning to our lives. So I've tried to condense, 25, 26 years of experience in this short half hour. I will be leading Gift of Forgiveness workshop in Romania in November. And who knows, maybe there'll be also a Circle of Forgiveness facilitator training following that. And you may find more information in a website in English that's been recently created that's called circlesofforgiveness.org. Circlesofforgiveness.org. This one is in English. The rest of my websites are in French. Thank you, friends of the heart, for being with me. And maybe we'll get to meet live soon, here, there, anywhere. Thank you.